All right, so we do have people that are still coming on, but in essence of time, we will get started. So good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see faces. It's always good when you see faces, whether it be virtual or I prefer obviously in person, but knowing that that's, far and few between these days. Welcome. It's great to have you here today for a presentation on the Paycheck Protection Program, the second round here of lending. And we're pleased to have back with us, as we did back in March and April when everything started hitting, and who would have thought come January we'd still be having these conversations. But we are so fortunate to have Virginia Smith, our regional director here from the Small Business Administration based up in Rochester, as well as Paul Morrell, the director of the Small Business Development Center at SUNY Geneseo, on the line with us today to give this presentation. And in a minute, I'm going to turn the program over to them. I'm going to pull up the screen share so you'll be able to go through the PowerPoint presentation with them. And we are recording today's session. So if you missed some information or need some follow-up, please let me know. While they're going through the presentation, feel free to use the chat feature along the bottom. You can send a chat directly to, if you send it directly to me, I can monitor that and share your questions, or if you send it to the group, we will monitor those questions throughout the program, and we will also leave time at the end for some open Q&A as well, which we can do back in this screen. You can raise your hand or you can use the chat feature. We will keep everybody on mute just to mitigate any background noise, but then we'll open it up when it's all said and done. So at this time, I'm going to screen share, and then I will turn the program over to Virginia and Paul.
All right, I can see it. Hopefully everybody else can. Thank you again, Laura and the Livingston County Chamber, and of course the SBDC at SUNY Geneseo for your partnership. I'm Virginia Smith. If you haven't heard or met me before, as Laura said, I am the SBA representative here for your area. So anything that we can do to kind of help get the word out about any of our programs, we're certainly happy to do so. Please let me know if some of my background noise is a little too much, as today I am working from home. So one never knows what might come behind me. So please just kind of Paul, like wave or do something or other. This is a pretty short, high level presentation on the Paycheck Protection relaunch overview. Paul, hopefully, and I will intersperse a little bit with some things that we've learned along the way, or some things that businesses have come up and asked us, or maybe some ideas or thoughts or questions that we're getting a lot of as we go through this. But at the bottom line is it's going to be your questions that drive the information that's shared here. There may be times when we're going to have to say, oh, I'll have to check that out for you, or, let us get back to you. But just kind of keep in mind that a lot of the things are developed, but everyone is very unique. Everyone has a different question and a twist on their question. So we also are developing FAQs and other things as we speak. We're not changing regulations. We're just answering people's questions and putting them online. So this stuff is current as of the 14th of January. I know that today is the 26th, which means it's 12 days old. But that's why it's pretty high level, because we'll be able to give you more information as we go forward. Laura, do I have control, or you're going to change? I think you have. Can I? Laura, can you change to the next slide, please? So this is what we're going to go through, some key dates. We're going to talk about first draw PPP loans, second draw PPP loans, forgiveness updates, and then what to do now. So Laura, go ahead. So just so that you understand, the whole point of this second draw was to increase access to additional funding opportunities. We initially opened up the application to just CI lenders, but now everyone can process applications regardless of your lending institution. If they happen to not be processing applications right now, please know It's probably because they're working with their electronic system to update some things that Congress had mandated change to the new legislation. But if they're not opening up applications today, they will be very, very soon. I actually think everyone is at this point, but I don't want to couch that just in case you run into an opportunity. Paul, have you heard of anybody who's waiting at this point? I think most of them are online.
I think everyone, yeah, I think they're online, and there's a couple of other lenders out there that are ready to take applications if, if a client or a small business does not have anyone to work with.
Right. We do have a couple lenders who are open to new businesses if you haven't worked with them in the past. Most of our larger lenders are only accepting electronic applications. Some of our smaller lenders, some of our credit unions, CIs are still doing paper. It's really up to you who you want to work with and how they want to process the application. There is a lender match platform. It's sba.gov/lender match, which is a way, it's kind of like Expedia for small businesses. It's a way for you to put out your information on the web and for lenders to then contact you, because we can't refer anyone. It's just kind of a way for us to help you out. Next slide, please. So the most important thing about this next slide is that bottom, right? We're in January, we're done with January almost. Oh my goodness, who knew that? But March 31st is the last day that you can apply for a PPP first draw or a PPP second draw. That is the new legislation. Congress may always change something, mind you, but as of today, you really need to keep in mind March 31st. So if you're on the fence, which is fine, there is so much money. None of us are foreseeing running out of money. But just keep that March 31st date in mind, because that is going to be the last date that the lender can accept your application for the program. Next slide, please.
Virginia, real quickly, is there a reason for that March 31st? Is that tied into
Congress?
Okay. purely congressional. Okay.
Purely congressional, purely a date in the legislation. So happy to have them change it, Paul.
Just so I have an answer.
Yep, that's your answer. Okay, so we're going to get into first draw versus second draw loans. First draw means you never got it. Okay, you just, for whatever reason, you just did not apply for the loan. Okay, this is not for people who applied for the loan and then changed their mind. This is first draw. When we talk about first draw, is anybody who did not apply as well. All right, so the nice thing is, and we're going to go through this in a minute, there's new additional types of entities that are eligible for first draw. We've actually increased the number of eligible expenses for forgiveness. You can now select anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks to spend that money. So if you want 15, you want 21, you can do whatever you want, whatever works best for your business, okay? Some borrowers can increase their original loan amount, and we can talk about that. But again, you have to apply before March 31st. Laura, next slide. Okay. New eligibility, you're a housing cooperative, you're a destination marketing organization. I had to look up what that was. I didn't know. Some of our rural areas have nonprofits or organizations that strictly focus on tourism for their small town. That's a destination type of destination marketing organization, if that happens to be you. Some of our 501c6s can now apply, like chambers of commerce, yacht clubs, things like that, and news organizations. Everybody else is still completely eligible. So we just expanded the number of people who are eligible. We did not shrink it. Next slide, please. Okay, before I get into second draw, I want to talk about first draw again. So with the first draw, the nice thing is you have new things that you can be forgiven for. So we talked about mortgage interest, payroll, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. But now you can be forgiven for PPE. You had to purchase PPE for you or your staff. You now have business operating expenses like cloud-based computing because you didn't go into the office, so you needed to do everything virtual. That is now eligible. If you had some property damage based on some of the civil unrest, that's now eligible. So why I'm talking about this is if you already have a PPP loan and you haven't had it forgiven yet, you can actually include those expenses in your forgiveness application. So the expanded forgiveness applies to not only if you're brand new to the program, but if you're already in it. Okay, so what is a second draw PPP? So Paul, anything about the first draw? Any thoughts that you've had on that? I haven't had a lot of questions on that other than, am I still qualified? And I always say, if
Yeah.
you were eligible before, you're eligible now.
Yeah, no, clients that did not receive it, like you indicated, for some reason from the first draw, this is the time and opportunity to apply and get your documents together for this second round.
Right.
Because there is a lot of money available.
There's a lot of money available. And so I've also had questions about increases. So we're going to talk about that here too. If you have a loan, a PPP loan, and you want an increase, it is very, very strict on the people who can receive an increase. And it is, if you had a partnership and you miscalculated your partnership dividends, if you were a seasonal business and you miscalculated based on the changes in the seasonality of rules, or you're a farmer or a rancher. Okay. The other things, so that's the 3 for if you have a loan right now and you want to increase it. The other 3 things are, you had a loan and you turned it down. You got nervous under safe harbor. You just decided to completely cancel your first draw loan. You can actually reopen that and ask for that loan. If you paid back a portion of your first draw because, again, something made you nervous and you did not want that whole amount, so you actually paid the bank back part of it, you can ask for an increase. And the third potential for asking for an increase is if you didn't accept the full amount the bank wanted to provide to you in the first time. So there are really limited focus areas on what you can do for an increase. So we talked about first draw, and we talked about increases, and now we're going to talk about second draw. So second draw means I already had a loan for PPP, and guess what? COVID is still negatively impacting my business. I still have a problem. I still need additional funds. Now what? So you have to have spent your PPP original money or certify that you will spend it on forgivable reasons before you get the second money in your bank account. Okay, number 1. Number 2, you have to have less than 300 employees. And employee counts also mean part-time. I did have this problem where I have a business who says that they have some seasonal employees, so they didn't want to count the seasonal employees, but you do. Okay, so under 300 employees. And you have to have less than 25% or more calculation of reduction in gross receipts. The amount of questions that we are getting about how to calculate gross receipts is astronomical. So much so that SBA put out a FAQ, a frequently asked question, on our website about how to actually calculate gross receipts depending on your business structure. Okay. Now the 25% reduction has to be quarter to quarter. So quarter 1 of 2019 to quarter 1 of 2020. Or quarter 3 to quarter 3, or annual. So quarter to quarter or annual. If you had to have been in business February 15th of 2020 in order to get this money, if that's the case, then there's specific calculations for you on how to determine your reduction, because you don't have anything. If you start in 2020, you don't have a 2019 to compare it to. So we have specific things for that. Again, the calculation is pretty easy. For your loan amount, it's payroll cost times 2.5. Why I also believe we're not going to run out of funds is the loans can only be up to $2 million instead of 10. Okay, it's another reason we're going to have plenty of funding. If you happen to be in an accommodation or a food service sector, your loan amount would be 3.5 times instead of 2.5 times. And remember, you have all those additional forgivable eligibility expenses. So even though you have to spend 60% on payroll, you have the opportunity to spend the money on other things and still be forgiven. And then we're going to ask you for additional information on your application. One of the things that we are going to ask you is, what is your current PPP number? And that loan number should be on your note document from your bank. If you can't find it, you need to call your bank. And by the way, you may go to a different lending institution to get your second draw. You are absolutely not wedded to go to the first one if you are unhappy with them or whatever for any particular reason, but you're going to need that number. So if it's not on your documents, you still need to contact the first bank or credit union. Laura, next slide, please. All right, so we talked about this. You had to first, you had to use that first draw, or you will be before the second draw hits your bank account. No more than 300 employees and at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts. A couple things to note. There are so many different quirks in the system based on what Congress wrote in the economic aid legislation that SBA is doing a lot of due diligence upfront. So in the beginning of this, back in March and April, if a lender put your information in our approval system, they got a loan number right away, like legit 15 seconds, okay? It is now taking our system 24 to 48 hours to generate that loan number for the lender. So, and then it's gonna take the lender a certain amount of time to close the loan with you. So just understand that you have a little bit of a difference in a timing here. They are still required to close your loan within 10 calendar days of the date that they receive the SBA loan approval. But it's going to, like I said, it's going to take them about 24 to 48 hours once they get the information into our system to actually get that loan approved.
Virginia?
Yeah.
Will, say a client submits their loan, submits their application before the March 31st time period. Are loans being provided before that time period, or is it everything happens after the 31st of March?
I'm not understanding your question.
If
As of
you-
March 31st, the application has to be in our system.
What if it's in before though? What if they get it in February 15th? Could they be funded?
Oh my gosh, people are already being funded, Paul.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah. If they can move faster than that, fantastic. I was just giving sort of a heads up as to how long things are taking at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, Laura. All right. So yay. Fabulous news. For those of you who had heard us talk about, if you received an economic injury disaster loan cash advance, originally it was going to be taken out of your forgiveness and you were going to have to pay it back. That is no longer the case. If you received a cash advance, we are not going to make you pay that back. Yay. If you already asked for forgiveness and the lender put that cash advance to you as a loan, we are developing the process to repay the lender, so you will not owe the lender, okay? You will not owe the lender. We just haven't put the process into place to repay the lender yet. So if you want to have a conversation with their lender, go right ahead, but you're not going to owe them that money if they paid it back. Forgiven PPP loans are not taxable income. Expenses paid with PPP loan funds are now tax deductible. This is from a federal side. I believe it's the same for the state. Paul, does that ring a bell to you?
I haven't heard any announcement on that yet, but I'm sure.
I've read an announcement somewhere,
Okay.
so I'm pretty sure it's out there, but check with your accountant. Neither
Yeah.
Paul or I are accountants, nor are we the last word of anything, just so you know. Remember that if you have yet to put in your forgiveness application and you already have a PPP loan out there, you are eligible for those expanded uses of your expenses. And pretty soon we're going to have a simple application for under 150,000. Other pretty soons are the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant. Don't have all that information yet. Everything, by the way, is found on SBA's website. A lot of times they're putting that stuff out there before even I get it. Okay. So always, always, always check the website. You might find something out before I do, which is always fantastic because I love to learn things. So if you know something I don't know, please share. Then what else is coming is debt relief. There was some information in the legislation about some of you who have received SBA loans in the past and that SBA would pay your principal and interest. It is not as simple as it was in the beginning in the first round. So there's a really complicated program coming out that we're still working on, but know that that's coming. If you have questions about that, we can talk about it offline, or you can go directly to your lender. There is still money in the EIDL loan program. If you have yet to apply for an EIDL loan, please do. That's SBA.gov as well. So there's still funding available in that program. So with that, Laura, the last slide is basically, you know, where are your resources? Contact your lender, lender match, Paul, Laura. If we can't help you, we will find someone who can. Or we may say, hold tight, that rule's not out yet. But you know, whatever we can do. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Like I said, short and sweet, and we want to hear from you guys. So Laura, I don't have access. Do you want me to look at the chat? I don't see anything on chat.
I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, we'll go to, we've got a question right here. Tracy and Doug, or John, Tracy and John.
Yes, good afternoon.
Oh, we can see you
Laura,
and hear you. Hello.
Laura, I actually sent you an email this morning. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it.
Yep.
We're at the Livonia Inn in Livonia, New York. It's a long running business, currently under the same ownership for 38 years. In 2019, we decided to renovate the entire building, structural, electrical, everything, and we're planning to open in the spring of 21. The day we announced our grand opening date was just a couple days before everything got shut down. And we've been denied any relief. We've been in business under the new takeout only restrictions since April 14th. We are on a limited
Of what
dining.
year? April 14th of 2020?
Yes. So we've been denied any relief funds because we didn't have payroll first quarter of 20.
Right, you weren't in business February 15th.
Correct.
Right, from the federal side. Have you looked into the EIDL program?
I was actually looking at it right now just because I saw your slide earlier.
Yep. So that's where I would go, is the EIDL program. That is just kind of for general information. That is a 20-year fixed rate loan, 3.99%. The first 12 months, no interest and no payments.
But no debt forgiveness on that.
No.
There's no provision for any extenuating circumstances.
Not the way that Congress wrote the legislation. I would say to you, the reason that there's a March 31st deadline is so that the new Congress can do something different. So I know you don't want to hear this, but either hold tight or talk to your local congressperson, because there's absolutely the ability for them to change things. But this was written.
I did.
It was not an SBA arbitrary date. It was something that was in the economic aid legislation. So they very well may change that. But as far as financing goes, you have the EIDL program. You could also look into the New York Forward program, which is a state program. I don't have, I don't have all of the information about that, but that's something as well.
We have that. I could help out with that.
You've got that, Paul?
Yeah. But I would definitely go to the EIDL loan program, and a lot of the information is right there on the SBA website, and they process that through fairly quickly too, to help you out in your situation.
Okay. Yeah, I did reach out to all our local and state representatives, hoping we'll get some kind of a response and see what changes with the new Congress.
Yeah. If you have, Laura, I'm not sure if everyone has my email, but if you can contact our office, we're happy to help out with all the applications.
And I got Tracy and John, I got your email. I responded, and I'll add Paul's email address to that as well in another response on that too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Tess had a question. Tess, you should be all set to go. We are not hearing you though. All right. Tess, if you want to message your question, I can convey that, as I'm not hearing you. It doesn't seem like I can unmute you either.
Is it on the chat?
I'm chatting with her.
Oh.
But I don't see the ability to unmute her. Okay, here we go. Hold on. For some reason, I cannot unmute her. So if you want to type in your question, Tess, I can convey it. Does anybody else have questions while we're waiting for Tessa's question to come through? Deb, okay, just 1 second.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thank you. I'm with the Arts Council, so we're a nonprofit organization. And we did receive the first round of money through the PPP, but I have not done our forgiveness application yet because our bookkeepers advised us to wait for the simpler application that I think you mentioned. Should I hold off on applying for a second round until I do the forgiveness application, or is it okay to apply for the second draw? I think that she's muted, or Virginia.
Thank you. I was doing hand signals. Okay, so here's a really good question for you. It's all about timing, because you don't have to apply for forgiveness in order to receive the second draw, but you do have to certify that you've spent everything appropriately to receive the second draw. So
Okay.
I don't think you just have that timing issue. So if you've already spent all the money, right, and you can certify that you spent it all on forgivable expenses, you are absolutely eligible to apply, and there's truly no reason to wait. Where you might run into problems, and I'm going to say this not because you asked, but just because it's a good thing to say, is if you are in the system as SBA is reviewing your forgiveness application, the lender cannot actually process your second draw in case there's an issue with your first. Okay, so you're actually in a good position to apply now and certify that you're going to spend it all versus already being in the system and now waiting for someone to say yes, they agree with you. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And then, yep. And then one other heads up for everybody. I got this call yesterday from an extremely emotional small business owner. SBA has been on record that we will audit any loan over $2 million. We will also spot audit random loans, random amounts, random business types, random lenders, random anything. So please know that you and your lender may be subject to an audit of your PPP loan, even if it's fully forgiven. I've got no rhyme or reason as to why, who, what, when, or how, but it is happening. So just know that going forward. All right, so I've got a chat. Can an owner manager pay him or herself if she's the only employee in the firm? Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. If you are a small business owner and you only are the only person on payroll, yes. If you file a Schedule C, it's yes if you had a profit last year. If you had a negative, they can't calculate your loan. But absolutely, this is for sole proprietors, self-employed. If you're a sole proprietor and you pay yourself income, but you have contract workers and you pay them 1099s, they don't count in your payroll because they can go after their own PPP loan. Laura, it looks like Norm has a question.
Yep. Norm, you can unmute yourself. Okay, you're on, Norm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this business of figuring of the prior period to compare payroll costs with. I have a client who just bought the business that he used to work in late in 2020. So as the owner, he only has a month or two of payroll records. Can the previous payroll records of the business be
Did the business
utilized?
change an EIN number?
I assume they did because they changed the name and they also changed, added and deleted some product lines.
Okay. So I would say that they should talk to the bank on how the bank wants them to account for that. But you asked almost two different questions. The first was, how do they calculate their payroll for comparison purposes? You're not calculating payroll for comparison purposes. You're calculating average payroll for the loan amount. Okay. That's a simpler question than what you're calculating for comparison purposes is gross receipts.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did have some people who changed ownership structures where they bought or purchase businesses, or they, went from a sole prop to an LLC, et cetera, et cetera. So what I would do, Norm, is I would ask them to really work with their lender to say what backup documentation does the lender need in order to calculate those things.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Paul, you're good?
No, yeah, they're all a little tricky, some of these questions. So
Yep.
that's why ask.
Absolutely.
It happened on the first time as well. As I think Virginia said, if we're a resource, but if we don't have the answer, we'll get it. And you have to also work hand in hand with your accountant.
And at the end of the day, it's you as a small business owner and the lender who are essentially putting these things in. So if y'all are comfortable, that's what matters.
Yeah,
I do have another question that's come up in the chat. Somebody has written, I have already repaid the idle portion of the PPP loan. How will that be returned to me?
You need to call the bank, because our credit union, because like I said, SBA is absolutely going to be paying the lenders for the idle advances. And in your case, their lender is then going to have to reimburse you. But the lender doesn't have that process yet. So you need to A, give them a little more time, but B, also let them know that you're waiting for your check as soon as they receive theirs.
be persistent with your lender.
Well, but in all fairness, they don't know yet either. So they're
Right.
certainly not holding back. We have not issued that yet.
I try to give them a little rope.
Yeah. A little rope.
Just a little.
But get your money back. You will get it back. You will.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So we have recorded the session, so we'll be posting it and emailing it out to you as well. And if you have offline questions, or you're looking for a little bit more information, you will be receiving the link to the slide deck, so you'll be able to get in touch with Virginia and Paul after today's session. And thank you for coming out. And Virginia and Paul, thank you for being such a great local resource here, and for your time today and making this information available to our membership.
Laura, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, and we're here, Laura, as as some of these other programs roll out. If your members want to hear from Paul and I again, we're happy to help.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, take
Thank
care.
you.